Hello everybody and welcome to NSR's coverage of the 2020 Newcastle University Student Union Presidential Candidate Debate. My name is Tom Stone and I will be your moderator for the evening. I'm joined by Katie Smith, who is the current President of the Student Union, so thank you Katie for being here. 45 seconds will be allocated to opening statements from each of the candidates, followed by questions from our bench in which we have 1 minute to answer. After questions, we will open up the floor to questions from the audience and to questions submitted on Twitter and Instagram, so get involved using the hashtag NUSU Debates 2020. Following this, we will have closing statements from the candidates, allowing again 45 seconds each. This is a debate between the candidates and not between ourselves and you guys, so argue amongst yourselves, pick out points you don't agree with, pick out points you don't agree with, etc. So we'll start with opening statements. Unfortunately, Finn Holden is unable to attend, but he has sent in his opening statement, so we'll start with him. He says, "Hi, I'm Finn Holden, a third-year computer science student. I have a wealth of relevant experience to bring to this role, but most important is my past involvement with NUSU. I'm a dedicated member of the swim team, president of the parachute club, after previously being social secretary and welfare officer, and a significant contributor to the Curry's music section. I've been a peer mentor and student ambassador, and have undertaken 3 NCL Plus awards, including that in leadership. This vast experience informs my manifesto and specific aims for the union, which come from first-hand experience and are realistically achievable. My main overarching goals, if elected, are to reach more students with the schemes we run, to truly be a students' union, invest more heavily in student welfare by reforming the student wellbeing service, and boost employability for all, with additional qualifications to be recognised by future employers. This manifesto contains promises that I believe are deliverable rather than empty promises, and build upon the cornerstones of the university experience, welfare, involvement and employability." So, Kaladi, would you like to go with your opening statement?
Yeah. Hello everyone, my name is Kaladi Abolarinwa and I'm a presidential candidate. I'm a mechanical engineering student and I'm my second year, and my aims are pretty simple. It's all about creativity, it's all about togetherness, it's all about everybody being one thing, and I feel like it's a lot we're lacking that in Newcastle. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Dorothy.
Hi, I'm Dorothy. I'm a third-year history student. So I'm current president of the History Society, so I do kind of have interactions with the student union and kind of get to know how things kind of operate and things like that. I think my manifesto points are things that I'm really passionate about, because I'm really passionate about making the lives of students just a little bit easier. So my manifesto kind of centres around like a stronger focus on students and their well-being, safety on campus, so that like ensuring that all students feel safe on campus, and addressing like the bigger issues that students may worry about, like the impending climate crisis.
Thank you, Dorothy. So on to questions now. We'll start with a more open question to open the floor and ease you into the debate. So Claudia, we'll start with you. If you're in a meeting with the Vice-Chancellor Chris Day right now and we're able to press him on one key issue, which would that be and why?
The state of creativity in Newcastle University, in the sense that you have a lot of creative minds that are in different fields of study, from mechanical engineers to medical students and all sort of other fields, and they have their creative sides. However, when they come to Newcastle as a university, they lose touch with that side because there's no facilities there to actually help them, and then you have facilities to actually help people more in areas of swimming and all sorts like that, which is good. But then some people have different skills and different like abilities, and they want to tap that as well. And I feel like they need to actually put something down out there for people to actually be able to access their talents. That's the word. Yeah. And then also I just lost my train of thought. I just moved to the next person. Yeah.
That's all right.
Dorothy, same to you.
I think right now, like the biggest issue on my mind, and I think on a lot of students' minds, is the strikes and what mitigating circumstances are going to come from that. So like, how are they going to make sure that students aren't super affected? So I know I'm in my third year and I've missed out on so many weeks of uni, and I know that's definitely going to come into play. Like I've missed dissertation meetings and just like things that are kind of vital in my third year. So I kind of want to know what they're doing to fully mitigate that, instead of just giving like cheaper graduations or 50% off food in the Robbo. Like that's all well and good, but like I want to know what practicalities are being put in place.
Okay, thank you. I hope you feel a bit more easy into the debate now. Finn has also answered this question. We've allowed him just to answer the first one as well, just to get a feel of his manifesto points. So he said the obvious issue will be surrounding the coronavirus currently and the strikes, as they are on the minds of our student population. University has been pretty awful at letting us know what their plan is surrounding these issues, and he also states that emails from the Vice-Chancellor have been vague and uninformative, which is unfair as these issues affect students so significantly. So we'll go on to the next question, a bit about the role of the President. So the role of President includes you being a major player in a multi-million-pound charity, a student representative and a trustee. Kalada, you state that being head boy and an ambassador in secondary school makes you fit for the role of Student Union President. What makes you think this?
I feel like when a lot of people look at me, they see a leader in terms of the fact that I always know the right calls to make in tough situations, and I always make sure that I take everyone into consideration before thinking about myself, because that's what's important. I feel like even you can have all talks about being a president and have aims and ideas you want to put out there, but if you're not ready to carry everyone together, there's no point of you saying you want to be a president. A president is someone that could actually accept that they're wrong at some points and listen to other people's opinions and actually utilize it and make something good out of it. And I feel like I've got those skills and I can make that happen.
Okay, and you also state that this experience sparked your interest in leadership roles. But as Katie made it clear to me, it is a misconception that the president of the student union performs at the top of a hierarchy and a hierarchical structure with the other SABs beneath him. It's more of a flat structure and all the SABs are equal. So do you agree that you've misinterpreted the role of the president, and how would you perform in a team of equals?
When I made my manifesto, didn't make it as president being above everybody else, because everyone works together, and I can make it it's about working with everyone and being together with everyone. But at the end of the day, in every situation, there must be someone that would always take accountability for everything that happens. And I'm saying that with the kind of person I am, with my personality, and with my goals and aims in life, I can take them accountabilities.
So you're saying that you'll be a leader amongst other leaders as well?
Basically.
Okay, thank you. Dorothy, you mentioned that you are currently president of the History Society. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that this role gives you superior experience to your fellow candidates, and if so, why?
Superior is such a... It's a big word, isn't it? Because obviously, I have this experience of being president of a society, but also, you've got experience that you may bring into the role that I don't necessarily have. But I do feel like it gives me maybe some capacity so we have a very large committee. It's all about working together, making sure that decisions happen and things like that. And I think I'm very good at kind of making sure that everybody's kind of working together. I like to say that I don't think I'm above anyone or think that I have more power than anybody, but I like to think that I'm able to facilitate things to happen, and I hope that's kind of the idea that I would bring into president, kind of being there to help other people facilitate kind of things they want to do. So when people come to me, they're this is what we want to do, I'm okay, so how can we make that happen, kind of situation.
Okay, you go on to mention that you'll make the lives of students easier and more enjoyable. We thought these were quite vague terms, so would you care to elaborate on them?
Obviously, I think you come to uni and you pay all this money and you want to be able to enjoy it and make the best of it. Obviously, easier and enjoyable, they're very subjective terms, but I think easier in the sense that I want to make sure that there aren't certain roadblocks into accessing things. So like I said, part of my manifesto is kind of widening the university food bank, because there's a statistic that says 1 in 3 students go without food at some point in their university career. So in that respect, widening that would make somebody's university life a bit easier, because they're not facing an additional challenge that they don't necessarily need to face.
We do have a question about the food banks specifically that we'll come on to later. But how would you accomplish this then? How would you make lives of students easier?
I think my manifesto kind of points this out a lot. So I've got, I really want to expand the counselling services available. So whether it's expanding them to more, or just finding a way to streamline the process so it's a bit easier, just because I have friends who've said to me that the process itself is quite discouraging sometimes, because it's such a not complicated, but almost you're jumping in and out of hoops to try and get the services that you need. I also kind of focus on the aspects of the end of your university career, so making graduations maybe a little bit cheaper if that was possible, just because I don't think that once you've paid all this money to do your degree and you've made it to the end, I just don't think that there should be a financial burden on you trying to decide whether you should graduate or not.
Okay, thank you. Katie, I believe.
Yeah, so you both mentioned that your key focus will be regarding the students of the university, which is obviously so important. It's your job. So student council is the most direct form of student democracy that we have here at the university. So why have neither of you mentioned student council in your manifesto? Do you believe that it is unimportant? What is your opinions on student council? So we'll start with Claudia.
Like I said, the whole point of leading is taking everyone into accountability. But obviously, with the state of how leading and most of these positions are in Newcastle, people are not really informed about this stuff. People don't really know about it. Even when they see it, they just get a little glimpse. They don't actually get told that this is what it is. And when information is vague, there's no way you can actually have people there and actually want to actually know what's going on. So for me, I know that yes, there is a council and whatnot there, but if there's no one that's actually easily accessible to actually speak to or actually like make you understand what's going on, you wouldn't really want to actually put yourself out there to go and actually inquire about something or give a request.
Yeah, I suppose the point of student council is that students turn up and they bring their issues to council.
Yeah, but it's
it's a good point. Yeah, Dorothy.
I think student council do some really good things. So like obviously that's where students can bring issues that they have. So I know that Stand Up to Racism brought an issue in the December student council that like they could obviously it was a place for them to be heard. I do think student council is important. I've not necessarily mentioned it in my manifesto just because I think it's important to say that I'm not 100% sure on how it works. I know that there is kind of like a chair, and I know that like students can bring things to student council, and I have watched student council proceedings, but I think it's important that obviously if I got into the role, I would be a more active part of that, and I actually would want to kind of promote it a little bit more, because up until about the end of last year I didn't really know what it was or what was a thing, but this year kind of keeping on top of it a little bit more, you actually do find out that if you have an issue that you want the SU to kind of hammer home, student council is the place to bring it. So I'd hope that by expanding that, not expanding it necessarily, but hopefully just kind of getting the promotion out there a little bit more, then students that kind of didn't know what student council was, like me, would be able to come in and be you know what, these are the issues that I have pertaining student council, and this is how I want them to be addressed.
So how would you increase those avenues and the transparency of student council and promoting it to the student body?
I think for me, promoting to the student body is more about just finding the ways in which students actually engage with news. So I know that for me, I engage with the emails from my course, but not necessarily the university. So maybe it's kind of taking things away from there. And I think it's kind of just making things a bit more known that even if you can't attend a student council, they're live streamed by NUTV, which I didn't know was a thing until this year. So I think it's just kind of making it known that things are happening. So whether it's tweets, whether it's Facebook things, which I'm pretty sure do happen now, but I think it's just about finding different ways to engage with students, which would be a big thing that I would be hopefully looking to do.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go on to issue-based questions now. So we'll start with transparency. And Dorothy, you mentioned transparency as a key issue in your manifesto. You state that you would inform the students on areas regarding strike action and the location of funds. There is much said in the meetings regarding these issues that are entirely confidential between the SU president and the boards that they're sitting on. So would you be willing to breach the confidentiality, which is often national, in order to inform students?
I think it's not necessarily about breaking confidentiality in the sense of I'm going to go and do my own thing. I think it's just about alleviating anxiety from students and just kind of the idea of not knowing what's going to happen. So if it was just a few things being okay, so this is the meeting that I've had and these are maybe the next probable steps that could happen, and then kind of giving people an opportunity to either express whether they wanted whether they were pro that or against that. I also think with allocation of funds, it's something that the university does technically release. They release a document every single year about the allocation of funds. But that document is about 100 pages long, and there's just so much jargon within it that the regular person doesn't really want to know. So I think it's about streamlining that a little bit more, making it accessible to people. So I'm not necessarily looking to overhaul the system and be let's break confidentiality, but I'm looking at maybe streamlining these things so they become a little bit more accessible for regular students like myself.
Yeah, I think, and on that point, it's a really great point and a really valid point. But we did in Student Council have a full-on half-an-hour debate on where the funds should go, and that's the appropriate forum for students to come and tell me where they want me to lobby the strike money to go. So that's just a point on Student Council. And then all SAB officers also do blog posts every Student Council, and that is where we update on what we're doing in strike meetings. We also have officer pages where all the relevant information is on there. So I suppose the point is that the information's out there, and it's, I suppose, looking forward, it's how students look at that and how they engage with that.
So based on that information, then, how would you expand on increasing the transparency in relation to what already exists with all these things?
So I know that SABs do release like blog posts, so I've read them, and like I find them quite interesting to keep up on top of. So I do quite read yours, and I read Sarah's as well. So I do keep on top of things like that. But I do think the SU website is a bit confuzzled, if that's the perfect word for it. There's like, it's a bit difficult to like know where things are and like kind of see where, so maybe like making that a bit more accessible for people to be like, okay, so this is exactly what I need to like look at, and kind of like highlighting key things that are happening, like being like, oh, if you want to know about this is where you go, and just kind of like making it a bit more user friendly maybe.
Okay, thank you. And Kaladi, you do not mention transparency as an issue in your manifesto. How can students rely on you to keep them informed on issues that affect their daily lives if you do not prioritise this?
I actually did mention it, but I didn't put in my the manifesto on the website. When in the business world, product placement is a very important thing, and how you place your product depends on your target audience. And for me, I know as a student, if I'm sending emails to all the students, the chances of them reading that is 0, because everyone's probably have a night out, have a couple of drinks and whatnot. But in reality, everyone's going to go to lectures at some point in time. And if it's possible to actually place this information on the app, because then students can easily access it when they're looking at the timetable, it gets the word out there. It gets people to actually listen and actually see what they actually need to see. For me, I think it's just very important to actually place the information right in the right places, and transparency will be there.
So you'd put the information on the Newcastle University app, is what you're saying? Okay. Yeah. And where would this go on the app? How would it?
It could literally go right directly under the timetable.
Under the timetable.
And just like it'd be like an information, but it's like when you go on there's a Transport for London app. Basically, when you go on it literally tells you, it gives like a red marker and tells you like impromptu information. And I feel like it can be very long. It doesn't matter, as long as it's there, they can see it. They'll take haste to it, and they'll actually read what is there to actually know what's there.
Okay, thank you.
I think affordability has been a big campaign. It has been for the last few years in terms of the hidden costs campaigns that we run each year. And I know that a lot of times students want to know where their fees go. They pay a lot of money to come to university. So I suppose my thing is, how would you try to inform students on where their money goes, and are you both aware that there is currently a pie chart on the university website as to exactly where their fees go?
So the pie chart that's currently on the university website, I thought it was really like interesting, to be fair. So it shows you where the roughly £621 million that the university gains, where they gain it from, and like the expenditure that it takes. But I think my main problem with the pie chart was it didn't break things down in the way that I would say that it's best to break things down. So it breaks down that they spend 2% on student support, but within student support they like lump it with careers, counselling and everything like that. So it doesn't break down the finer details of it, which is what I think would be interesting, because if you say you spend 2% on student support, how much of it is actually going to counselling services and how much of it is going to external examiners? And it also doesn't break down like how much of that is sent to staff, like for pay and things like that. So I think it felt like that pie chart was released to placate people, almost, to be like, oh, but like, look, this is it here, like it's fine. But like actually when you start to break it down a little bit more, like it still feels a bit hidden.
That's great, because the breakdown is actually coming next Friday.
Okay.
So it will be published on Friday, so take a look at that reformed.
Kaladi, in relation to your idea for the app and stuff, do you know who you'd start talking to if you were elected after the summer, when we first come back in September? Who would you begin talks with to get this implemented?
I think I would first put my idea forward to the Vice Chancellor or someone in great power before taking the idea to getting the permission and taking the idea to the IT department and trying to implement that.
Okay, thank you. We'll go on to student wellbeing now. Dorothy, you want shorter waiting times for mental health services at university. For the audience and for me, because I've no idea, are you aware of the current wait times for these services?
I know that it's very individual, so there's not like people, and I'm only saying this from like personal experience of friends that I have that have gone through the process and have said to me that like it doesn't feel user friendly. I personally have not gone through it, but like having friends that have gone through it and complained that like, so you have to, so like it's a multiple step thing. You either make a phone call or you go in or you fill in an online form. And then after that, you have to wait for them to assess you. And then, so you have to go in and kind of like, it almost feels burdensome. Like, oh, like you have to fill this in and then you have to come in for an assessment and then maybe we'll tell you and give you, and then maybe you can access these services. And I think, I feel like it's about kind of alleviating that burden from the student a little bit more, like being like, okay, so if we can't make it like so that like everything is shorter, like let's make one part of it shorter. So let's make the time between you filling in the form and you getting your assessment a little bit shorter, or like the time it takes between getting an assessment to hearing whether they can provide you like support a little bit shorter, because obviously like not everyone gets support from the university. It's like people will go through this process expecting support from the university and they can turn around and be like, actually no. But if from the very beginning they can be like,
sorry Dorothy, I'm gonna have to
okay.
Sorry, the minute, sorry. So on that, so you talk about shortening each stage of the process. Would this require the funding of more staff and for in the mental health services within the university? And if so, what areas would you cut down to increase funding for this?
Inevitably it would like require more funding, and I think personally for me it would probably be coming from other expenses that we probably have. So we spend 4% of our income on like conferences and the catering for those conferences, and I just think student wellbeing is a little bit more important than some of those things.
Okay, thank you. Claudia, you have mentioned that you would act as a support mechanism to students. SABs are not supposed to provide direct support to students, and instead they're encouraged to go through the Student Advice Centre. With this in mind, how would you act as an alternative support mechanism other than the welfare officers and other than the Student Advice Centre?
I feel like there should be freedom on the campus in terms of who you can speak to and whatnot. It's not about, I might not have like a direct conversation with someone, but dropping an email, dropping a message or whatnot, it goes a longer way. And I feel like when you see whatever you've complained about being implemented, it actually shows that you're being listened to. And I feel like the steps to actually get that done is longer in most situations. So it's like, it takes like maybe like 6 months or so, or maybe the next year you come back, that's when it gets implemented. And it shouldn't be like that, because this person could have left the university. So it doesn't feel like we're actually taking the students into account, we're just taking the next set of students into account. It shouldn't be like that.
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I suppose the support mechanism is a bit vague in terms of, is it a support mechanism for students who have general complaints about the university and the union, and that you take that on board, or is it complaints in terms of hate crime and sexual harassment, and like what sort of support mechanism are you personally going to provide for students?
Personally, support mechanism is to take whatever complaint you have into account and know there's certain steps and places I should actually direct you to, and actually get a team together to actually make sure that that is done. It could be any problem, it could be discriminatory problem, it could be something you don't like about the university, it could be anything. I feel like I should be able to handle every single problem in terms of knowing the right places to be able to send you to, the right help that you need for any
so
problems.
To be able to signpost students to different, yeah.
So I suppose that's kind of similar to what Katie would do now. If someone were to email her with a problem, Katie would send them in the right direction.
It is.
So is this saying that this is going to be more of the same, or would you expand on it?
There will be more of the same, but there would be, in terms of actual accessibility, because I feel like one of the things that people have said to me over the past few weeks when I actually approached people and said, oh, I'm running for student president, and they go, is there even a student president? So like a lot of people haven't even been to the student union building before. A lot of people don't even know that the student union even exists. And I feel like if you're putting it out there, you're putting it in people's faces, and they know where it is, they know where they can go to, and they know who they can speak to actually get the thing sorted out.
So when you say putting it out there, what do you mean specifically by that?
I feel like the whole, as sabbatical officers, there is so much more, we should have much more influences on the students so that they can know that you're actually there. Like, it's not about, yes, you can put this event together, you can do that together, but how many people would actually go to it? In a university with over 16,000 students. But if you actually make it more known in terms of like, there's the ways where the university broadcasts events and whatnot that they wanted to do. And if you're putting the student union right there in the center point, making people know that this is where they need to actually be, then people will actually get more involved and they know what's going on around them.
Okay.
What sort of events, just out of interest, what sort of events have you been involved in the Students' Union?
I was involved in Black is Gold event where I actually performed, and it kind of gave me the difference in a sense.
Did you find that was a good way to get the SU out there? Did you think it was successful?
I think it was good because the actual, after that event, as an artist personally, my music actually made it onto the Newcastle University Spotify playlist. And it didn't just stop there. It actually made me understand that people are actually paying attention to what's going on. But if we're not actually giving them these like interactive events where they can actually meet other students, where they can actually see how other students are doing and actually motivate them, they wouldn't want to see it, they wouldn't want to do it.
So is that the sort of event that you'd want to build on?
Yeah.
In terms of, you were asking earlier about affordability, if you were to host more of these events, would that be meaning other areas got cut in order for more money to go towards these?
Not necessarily. I feel like if the university, like, at the end of the day, you have, as an average international student, you're probably paying upwards of 16,000 to about 20,000, 22,000. And I feel like if I'm paying 22,000 to be here and a home student's paying 9,000 to be here, that technically is about 11,000 or so extra from the amount I'm paying. So where is that actually going to? You could actually just take, even if it's just 5 students, that's 55,000. That is more than enough to actually open a proper music studio for the university, for the music production school. Because obviously there's issues when it comes to the music school and the music studio because they have exams and assessments under, which won't be safe to actually give that out to students for recreational purposes. But it doesn't even take more than 10, 15,000 max to actually build a proper normal studio and actually have students come in there and assimilate and actually like have proper conversations and actually be together, because that's literally what the whole student union should be about. So,
are you aware of the Newcastle Student Radio that currently sits under the Students' Union, and how much involvement have you had that in terms of music production? Because music is one part of the whole.
I've actually personally reached out to the Newcastle Student Radio, and I actually got a response, but it's not that accessible for students in terms of the fact that I can't just stand up one day and say, I want to go to Newcastle Radio, I want to go have a talk. No, you need to meet certain criteria, or you need to actually have had serious conversations with certain people for you to actually do that. I can't just
to go on an NSR. You have to meet certain.
Because I have no idea, because I feel like you actually have to, because for some weird reason when I actually approached and said, okay, this is the situation, and I've got like terms and numbers, I've got projects coming up, and I'll go there and have a conversation on the Instagram page and have conversations like, this is what I need to do, this is what I want to do. Response can be much slower. It can take like 3-4 days or even probably weeks to actually get a response, and even getting your ideas implemented is almost like a never thing. I was asked to send an email with my music, I did send it over, never heard it played once on NSR. So I mean, for me as a student, if I'm going out there to actually have a conversation with someone and I'm not getting anything done, what's the point of me trying?
I suppose the difference between getting your music played on NSR and being involved with it. So there's easy every year or every semester even, there'll just be on their Facebook page there'll be a expression of interest form, and you fill it in, and 9 times out of 10, or 99 times out of 100, you'll get the show, and it's as simple as that. So if it's that easy to get on shows and stuff like that, then we have a problem at NSR with sort of advertising it and stuff. So in terms of advertising, aside from events and everything, how would you improve the social media or the online presence of the SU?
It's just the whole student inclusiveness, like actually making students that they're actually included in everything in terms of the social events and all sort of other events, like making them actually involved. I mean, I can't be a student radio and I'm talking about something happening in London. That doesn't change my life as a student, because I want to know what's happening around me. I want to hear what's going on around me. I want to see the developments going on around me.
Okay, and sorry, Dorothy, you haven't really mentioned events or activities on your manifesto. Is that something that you're not concerned with, or?
It's not that I'm not concerned with it, but I do think there are really good events that do happen, and every single year the sabbatical team do organise really good events. I was also involved in Black is Gold, and that was kind of like really like an interesting thing for me to be involved with. So I'm very much aware that like campaigns are always happening. There was like Fuck with Eleanor about the climate crisis, and there's the Black and Blue campaign at the moment. So I do think that like events and campaigns are always happening. It's not that I'm not interested in them, but I think it will be every sabbatical team has a special set of people that come in with wanting to do different things, and I think I would bring something to that. I just didn't quite include it in my manifesto.
Okay, I think Katie, you got a point.
Yeah, what would you bring differently to that to the campaigns that already run? What sort of separate new campaign would you run?
So for me, I'm very interested in kind of like the social media aspect of campaigns and how they're run on campaigns. I would kind of, for me, it would be a bigger promotion on social media. So like I know that societies can take over NUSU and things like that and kind of like publicise things like that. So I think it would be just kind of like bringing a kind of like fresh new social media perspective to events that could run on campus.
Thank you. We'll move on to, because running short for time now. So discrimination as our next topic. Kalada, you do not mention discrimination at all in your manifesto. Do you believe this not to be an issue on campus? And what are your policies, what will be your policies on handling discrimination?
I mentioned discrimination in my campaign as well. My take on it is that it goes on around us. It happens every day. And I feel like a lot of people would not want to shine light on it because they don't even know where to go. They don't know who to speak to. They don't know who's actually going to listen to them or who actually cares. And it's about having someone there that actually knows what you're going through, has actually been there, and they could actually put that forward. I can't expect someone that's not been through what I'm going through. You know, let's say I'm a Saudi Arabian kid, and I go through so much in my course because of where I come from. I can't expect someone that's from God knows where, like France or something, to actually know where I'm coming from. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like there should be someone that they should be able to speak to, and there should be things that it should actually be a serious situation in university, just the same way issues. I don't want to talk about this issue, but just the same way certain issues are taken serious in university, it should be one of the issues that should be taken serious in university.
In terms of who to speak to when people face discrimination, we have a report and support system. The Students' Union has a report and support system, and so does the university as well. We also have a student advice centre, and from student advice centre you get signposted towards student wellbeing. So I suppose there's an array of people that people can speak to. We also signpost to external companies and charities as well. So I suppose how would you build on this array of support that is already provided?
It's just the same thing as making all this support student friendly in terms of the fact that they know it's there, in terms of the fact that they are comfortable to have that conversation with whoever they have the conversation with. I can't be writing an email to somebody about something happening to me in school. I don't know the person I'm writing the email to, and I'm just writing the email there. Me writing the email, I have no belief in the email I'm writing. I'm just writing it for the sake of writing it. And even if I get a response, I probably won't take it serious because of the fact that I don't even know the person I'm sending this email to. I don't even know if they really care about the issue I'm actually putting forward to them. And that's very important because the thing is, people are very different. And if we're trying to tackle this problem with a point of view of just a certain type of people, you're not going to capture everyone. Some people have different personalities, some people have different ways they actually, react to certain situations. And I feel like we need to calm down and actually think about how to actually make sure that we can capture everyone's ideas and everyone's views.
Yeah, so are you looking for more face-to-face support?
Yeah.
And is that for the union to provide, or is that for the university to provide?
I feel like it's the conversation for the union to have with the university to provide.
Right, okay.
Because only the union knows what the students are going through. So the only ones that can actually speak to the university to actually know what they want the university to provide.
I suppose you say that, I understand your point when you say that you don't know who you're writing the email to in terms of a complaint or a response or whatever. But at the same time, people will want anonymity as well. So how would you balance the two of like being comfortable enough to send an email but also remaining anonymous to the person?
I feel like there's a very there's a grey line between trying to be anonymous about information and actually trying to get help. At the end of the day, it's not as much as you can try to be vague on who you are to people. Certain situations where they're so serious in terms of discrimination and stuff that you just really need to go through it, and it can be painful for everyone. Everyone has to go through certain issues in life, but I feel like you just need to go through it because that's the only way they can even help you to take care of it in the future. And I feel like instead of pampering someone to the point where they don't know how to take care of situations, it's about teaching people how to handle situations and how to actually take care of themselves in these situations. So I feel like as much as a lot of people want to be anonymous about it, there is a grey area where it kind of conflicts each other.
Thank you. Dorothy, you do mention discrimination, if very vaguely, in your manifesto. You want to improve the manner in which the university handles discrimination. How do they currently handle discrimination, are you aware?
I'm aware that if you get reported, there is a kind of internal procedure, so it depends what kind of issue it is, whether it's like a university student, like a university issue or a NUSU issue. So I do know that there are separate kind of systems in place to deal with that. And I do know that, like, for me, the kind of results of it are very closed off almost. So, and I get that to protect quite a lot of things like GDPR and etc., things like that. But so I do know that, like, the discrimination is like, let's not discriminate, but like I think it's more about figuring out the ins and outs of like what's happening.
Okay, and what would you do differently then to what is currently in place?
So for me, it's not about like stating person X has this punishment, but I think it's just about people on campus knowing that these are the punishments in place for people, just because I know that it would really, like, it would help people feel safer on campus if they know that, like, if you're not having to second guess, you're like, oh, that person, like, are they, if you just kind of know what kind of systems are already, if you know, like, okay, so we're not going to disclose that this person, this punishment has happened to them, but being like, as a university, these are the stringent measures that we're taking.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so for both of you, I suppose so many forms of discrimination, so what sort of, is both quite vague in your manifesto, and it's not mentioned, but what sort of discrimination are you referring to in your answers, and how would you handle a variety of different forms of discrimination towards different groups of students in terms of the whole student body that you have to represent?
So I think for me, there's obviously different levels. So there's racism, sexism, homophobia, discrimination against disabled people. So there's so many like nuances with discrimination. But I do think that it's important for everybody on campus, whoever they are, to feel safe and to feel like they belong on the campus that they've paid £9,000 a year to be on. So I think when it comes to discrimination against like groups of people, I think it's just about us having kind of like a set of measures in place to protect people that don't discriminate against other people as well, just kind of making it clear that like all forms of discrimination are not allowed on our campuses, whatever they may be, whoever they may be against, this is exactly what we'll do against that.
So I suppose just on that, I suppose all forms of discrimination is not acceptable on campus, and there are punishments in place for all forms of discrimination. So how would you make campus more safe regardless of the policy aspect of it?
I think it's just about keeping things visible for people, and making sure that people know like the reporting systems that are in place, making sure that people know that, okay, so if you feel like an issue hasn't been resolved properly, going to student council, going to your other sabbatical officers, just because for me, like, I know that I've seen certain discrimination things happen on campus and being like, but what's being done about it? Like, I feel like you obviously feel very strongly about it, and I feel like because sometimes it's just not a bit clear, like that passion kind of dies, you're like, oh, I feel very strongly about it, but I don't know where to go because I feel this strongly about it. So I think if we're just making that a bit clearer.
And Claudia?
Sorry, so the question is, how do you handle a variety of different forms of discrimination towards different groups on campus?
When it comes to discrimination, like my co-candidate said, it's just buckling down on the punishments that offenders get, in terms of making sure that they know that it's going to be a serious offence and they know the kind of punishment that is, and you know, they'd stay away from it. But also, it's like when you say student union, it's, you know, unity of students, and as student union, it's about bringing students together, because when you bring people together, they can see the good in each other, and it breeds space for goodness. It breeds space for like better things. People won't actually be discriminated, but there's that whole thing where I have uni life and then I have outside uni life. Like, yes, you should always have your outside uni life, but there's no balance. It's like people are just like maybe like 20% uni life and then 80% outside life, because there's no togetherness in university. There's not that whole family, feeling that you're supposed to have. And when you have that family feeling, there can't be room for discrimination.
How would you implement that togetherness on campus?
I feel like by creating events that will not necessarily cost the university a lot, but could potentially bring people together. In terms of like the studio that I mentioned, I think people coming together and just to actually see what each other can create and what each other can make would amaze them to the point that they don't even have the time to be thinking about trying to discriminate the other person. I've had instances where certain colleagues of mine in university have hollered to me and said, oh, I heard you have a studio, can I come to your house and come and record? And when people actually come over and they actually have that session with me and they realize that, yo, this is way more fun, and that's the kind of happiness I want to bring into the university, because if students actually have that togetherness there, there's so much we can make of ourselves than just discriminating each other.
Okay, thank you. We are going to have to move on to the next section. Sorry if you had a question. We're going to move on to sustainability. Katie, kick us off.
So yeah, Dorothy referred to Newcastle as the second most sustainable university in the world. I'm sorry to say that this article is actually based off of skewed information, and it's not actually true. So I suppose the question is, what would you do to improve the university's current efforts to be more sustainable? And so that's the first question.
Well, that's quite tragic to hear.
I'm sorry that fake news is a thing.
Yeah, I feel like I've been led astray. Well, when I was researching, there are so many different figures that come in, and you just kind of have to like pick one. So I picked that one. But I think
you look at the Newcastle University's
sustainable campus page, but like it's a lot. There's a lot of information, so I think first of all would be kind of like making that a bit more accessible, just because I feel like there's so many like clicky tabs of like, oh my god, go here, go here, go here, go here. But like part of my thing is kind of working with the sustainable campus team. It would be kind of like, so I know that I do history, and has like this new thing where they are trying to be a greener thing, so like reducing paper that they use. So they're trying to make a promise to by next year stop printing out as many like big booklets that people may not necessarily need and could get online. So it's things like that when it comes to like students, and then maybe like offsetting travel for where lecturers go abroad and things like that. So like offsetting that carbon footprint that they may put out.
And Claudia, I suppose same question for you. What sort of sustainability things would you bring about? How would you make the university and the union as a whole more sustainable?
To be fair, you can only teach people to do better and recycle more and make sure they don't do certain things that would destroy the environment. But as student union, you only have so much power that you can actually implement these things. Only the university could pretty much buckle down on sustainability and actually tell people that, if you don't do this and you don't do it right, there are going to be consequences and problems for it. So I feel like the student union can only, shine light on it when it comes to meetings with the university, but it's more of the university's job to make sure that this information and these sanctions are given to people if they don't adhere by it. And they should also reduce the amount of, I'm not saying reduce the amount of money you get for printing, but it's like there's ways around it. I feel like certain people would always take the piss and like print out a lot of stuff, and when you notice that pattern, you should always just calm it down from students and like have like not personalized, but a way to actually see what people are doing. And like it's like when I was in secondary school, we had this thing where you can see how many gigabytes a person is using on the school internet, and they just call you and say, okay, this is the situation, you're banned from using this for like a few weeks or whatnot. So I feel like if you have that in place...
Sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off there. Sorry about you. So you advocate for actually reducing student printing fees? Yeah. So Dorothy, you actually said that you agree with the print credit transfer. I assume that means from year to year.
Yeah. If
you haven't used all your credits, they get transferred. Okay. Do you agree that this may contradict your initial sustainability statement, and this could actually encourage students to print more paper?
I think most students are very much aware of the kind of climate that we're in the sense that like we do need to be making kind of concerted steps to reducing climate change, but I also think that there is something to be said about the fact that paper copies of essays still need to be handed in, the fact that there are certain things that you just can't get away without from printing, and I feel like as long as if we're pushing like greener stuff and being like, okay, so here is like putting recycling stations in the library and things like that for papers that you're done with, I think it's important that students are actually able to access printing services that they need for dissertations, for essays, and anything else that they may need to do.
Okay, so you both say that the student body should be made aware of the consequences of, not recycling, etc., using a lot of paper in the printing. So I'd like to get the different perspectives from both of you on how you would educate them and what forum you would use to educate them on sustainability. So Claudia, we'll start with you.
It's just making people aware of the disturbing issues and the effects that making of this waste can actually cost the environment. I feel like for me, I'm more aware about this stuff because I stay up all night watching YouTube, seeing things about the ocean and stuff, and like obviously that kind of stuff scares me. And I feel like if you put that in front of people, they can actually see the reality. I feel like people don't know the actual reality with the environment and how much effect that it has on us as human beings.
So sorry, how would you go about that? Would you play these videos in lectures or
lectures? I'll probably make it like a very important thing for most lectures, and like especially like the big auditorium lectures, to make sure that everyone grasps that information, because in reality nobody really comes to the small lectures.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Thank you. Dorothy?
I think for me it would be like maybe putting it on the app. So like if you go on and see how much printing credit you have, maybe just putting a little thing on there about like how to like use paper sustainably, and then just kind of like hammering home that idea, so like putting it on the website, just giving students different ways to know the impact. So like when it tells you one side of A4 is 4p, and then maybe telling you, okay, how much one side of A4 is in terms of the environmental impact.
So fairly similar
Yeah.
concepts. Katie, do you
Yeah, I suppose what neither of you mentioned is obviously the university has an issue with sustainability, but is this something that we need to be working on a local level? Like, do we need to be working with the council? Newcastle needs to be carbon neutral by 2040. So do we not need to have more drastic measures? Do we need to be completely digital in the next couple of years? And I suppose just that focus of the extremity of it, and do your manifesto points need to be a bit more clear on how severe this issue is?
I think going completely digital also has its negative impact. So I feel like going completely digital, we're not going to like completely be a sustainable campus, because there will still be some impact on the environment. So I think it's about weighing those, kind of like maybe working together with the council, with like local businesses that like focus on sustainability, and figuring out what the most sustainable way for us to continue is, because sometimes going 100% digital can be worse.
It's just making sure, I feel like if you go fully digital, it's not going to really work, in terms of the fact that you just want to make sure that people know the difference between important printing and fun printing. And I feel like a lot of people just partake in fun printing half the time. I feel like if you know what you actually need to print, you don't actually need to print so much stuff, because only so many things you can actually print out that important. So it's about educating them and telling them that, okay, this is what you actually would possibly need. Like, okay, you have a coursework doing, you need to print that. But if you have notes, like if you're an engineer, you've been provided with a tablet, you can read those notes on the tablet, you don't have to print it out. You can highlight, you can do all sorts, you can edit it on the tablet. You don't need to actually print out those kind of things. So I feel like it's about letting people know what the difference between important printing and fun printing is, very much.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on now to just some general manifesto picks that we couldn't quite categorise. So, Claudia, we'll start with you. You referenced that you see the presidential role as a quote, an ideal stepping stone for you. How do you expect students to have confidence in you as a president if you're only using the role for personal endeavours?
When I say stepping stone, I didn't mean stepping stone for just me personally. I mean as a stepping stone for the university, as the plans and ideas I have are, when sharing it with people in certain areas of the university, they saw it as feasible ideas to actually move the university to the next level, and to actually a much more bigger level, and actually putting us out there in terms of universities in the UK. So yeah, I see it as a stepping stone to create a better university.
Very good answer. Yeah, very good.
Okay, last one as well. So Dorothy, obviously the focus on graduations. SAB team is currently working on that in terms of cutting the price of tickets. So what? But when you take money away from one place, you have to take the money out of somewhere else. That's sort of how it works. So what are you willing to sacrifice in terms of the graduation experience in order to make it cheaper for students?
So obviously I couldn't tell you where I'd take money from right now, because it would be kind of like a decision where people would have to sit and be like, okay, so this is that expenditure for this and this is the expenditure for this. Is it possible to shift around money? But for me, it's just about like, so I know for me, as I'm planning to graduate this summer, like there is kind of, you kind of think about it, you're like, oh my God, £42 for a robe, because it's not just the robe, it's my parents are coming, so you've got to get them tickets, and then you've got to get them somewhere to stay. It's like, it's all of that. So I think if we can just alleviate parts of it, then other people might feel like, okay, no, I can get my parents to come, because like if we take away money from here, they may be able to afford a ticket elsewhere. Like, I think it's just about sitting down, figuring where money can be cut from, which I couldn't do right here.
So if you're going to alleviate funds from one bit of it, which bit would it be?
In the graduations or in just like the
Graduations.
I think for me it would be rope hire. Just because like I want to be able to wear a robe and not have to think about the cost of it, and I feel like once you've done 3 years and upwards, like it's one thing you deserve.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on now to audience questions, so that our section is over. So if the audience have got any questions, we've got a microphone that can come round to you. If you'd just like to raise your hand. No?
Come on, Stephen.
Go
Ask
on.
a question.
Yeah, there's a mic.
Kalade, in your manifesto it says that you want to make it more of a students' union. What do you mean by that?
I think one of my slogans was SU is togetherness and togetherness is us. And the whole idea behind that is the alienation of the student union from the actual students. So there's a massive margin. And like for students in the medical school, for example, they know completely nothing about the SU. In fact, I've met a lot of them and they've never ever been to the SU building until the day that I was actually making my manifesto video, when I actually met with a few of them. So I feel like it's about making the SU not just something on the campus, but something that is involved with the student life, because it's about student union. It's not Newcastle University, it is Newcastle University Student Union. That's about every single student that's on this university campus and bringing them together.
How would you, and maybe you could chime in on this as well, how would you actually try and do that? Because obviously, I mean, you've said that emails aren't particularly effective, and we've discussed that at length in council, etc. And we are really sort of struggling to come up with new, exciting ways to engage with students that aren't already being tried. I just wonder if either of you or both of you could have any ideas on how we would
I feel
bridge
like
that
with
gap.
teenagers and like most grown adults, it's like a lot of people, the only thing that attracts them is events, new opportunities, something that calls out to them, something that actually attracts them. And if we can actually create more of these events or initiatives that actually attract students by reading what we know and what actually attracts students on campus, we can easily get people to actually get involved. And it's all about that, really.
I think for me it would just be kind of obviously I have listened to student councils. I know that like trying to reach students is kind of a big thing that you guys are like trying to work on at the moment. I think for me it would just be how we get the message out there. So like, do we have an app that gives notifications to people being like, oh, this is happening? Do we put things in student calendars being so like they're already scheduled in so people know when things are happening? So when you go on, you're like, oh, I've got this lecture today. Oh, but also like student council's on at this time today. Just things like that.
Okay, thank you. We've got a submission online as well. This is a question for Kaladi, but we will come for your opinion on this as well, Dorothy. Kaladi, your manifesto mentions creativity, but you haven't mentioned any of the 3 strands of student media, I suppose, until it was brought up in the questions. NUTV specifically is underfunded and underrepresented.
Yeah.
How could you solve this?
Again, it's all about the university looking at, every student as how much are you actually paying to be here, and how much of it are you actually using for me as a student. I'm paying, as a mechanical engineer, and I'm paying $22,000 a year, and I get no textbook. All I get is lectures, and lectures I don't even hold once in a while because of strikes, and online resources. Pretty much have to actually pay for some of them, to be fair. So for me, it's like what I'm saying is I don't mind paying that money, but where is it actually going? How is it helping me as a creative? What we're actually doing with that money? Instead of me just finding out that, okay, because you're a home student and you come from a very bad area, which is fair, you get the surplus amount of money to get as like bursary. And then I'm paying so much, so when I'm broke, it doesn't matter. As long as, because I'm an international student, it shouldn't matter. Do you know what I mean? I feel like there isn't so much done with this fund. It's like there is things that they can put out there to say, okay, this is what we're using it for. But in reality, we're the student. We're paying for this money to affect us, not to affect the university structures or buildings or whatnot. And I mean, it's nice to have the best equipment and the best facilities, but it doesn't make sense having the best facilities if it's not having any effect on your students. And so what I'm saying is, with NUTV and NSR and all of that, it's about making the students aware that they can be involved, making them know that they can actually do it. Because I mean, if there's
So
a
I'm going
football
to have
field,
to, for the minute, sorry. Dorothy, how would you increase the underrepresentation of student media?
So I do agree that student media is probably a bit underappreciated, especially NUTV, and I do think they do some really good work. Like they live stream so many events, and it's actually quite amazing how many events they do live stream. So like Fight Night, student councils, these debates. I think for me it would just be finding seeing if there is any money elsewhere that we could kind of like shift about. So like last year we spent about £120 million on buildings. Is there any way that if that funding's there for buildings, is there not just a little bit more to go to the Courier or to NSR or to NUTV, things like that?
Okay, thank you. I believe we have another audience question.
Yeah, I think the question is for both of you. In terms of, I think printer credit and stuff, you're gonna cut printer credit off students. Is that right? I'll take it. Right. Okay. Well, based like, how are you going to, in terms of all the decisions you're making? I feel like it's just, I mean, what you guys think is better for the student, but how about the inclusiveness of the students? Have you ever thought about that? What students would like, and how are you going to?
Sorry, so obviously like when it comes to including students and letting students know what is available, there are suggestion boxes in the SU that you can drop off suggestions to, and there is also student council that we've mentioned that you can go to and be like, this is what we think should be done. So obviously when it comes to like a sabbatical team making decisions, they don't just make a decision and that's be all and end all. There is the opportunity for students to come forward and be like, this is actually what we'd like you as our representatives to make the stance or to do something or to say this. And so I think I would very much so try to increase those opportunities as much as possible so that people, because obviously at the end of the day it's not just me making these decisions, I'm a representative of the students.
Kaladi. Sorry, we'll give Kaladi a minute to answer that question as well.
I just feel like as a university, we have over 16,000 students from different backgrounds, different countries. They have different opinions, different ideas. This is one of them decisions where it comes down to what effect does this have on the environment. And for me, it's like I would love to take every student into account, but at the same time, I've got to think about the environment these students are in. There's no point having these students in this environment if it's not going to be there no more because of the waste we're making. It's about making that executive decision and saying, you know what, this is just important to actually look at. It's very important to take care of. So for me, as much as I can take the students into consideration, I also have to think about what's better for the students as well.
Okay, thank you. Audience question?
So, Kaladi, you place quite a lot of emphasis in your manifesto on student health being and mental health. So I just have a few questions, as in how accessible is counselling this university, and what are your actual plans to, I remember I read something about making it more student friendly. What exactly do you mean by that, and what are your plans?
When I say student friendly, I feel like as a student, when you have certain issues, and like everyone will always have that situation in their life where they're depressed or they're down or whatnot, and when you're down and you're depressed, you want, as a student, you want to have the most accessible way to actually tell someone your problems. At that point in time, you're weak, you need someone that could actually get you through that situation. And if I'm going for counseling and telling me come back in 6 days, that's not the kind of approach I want to my issues. And I feel like if we can make it like more student friendly in the sense that the way the issues are actually attacked, the way the issues are actually taken care of, are actually much more like, they're actually more considerative of the point of view of the student, in terms of like they're tailored to actually take care of it in a student capacity, not in a much more professional capacity where I have a mental issue problem and then you go to me, oh, you only have 6 counseling, after this your case is extreme so you have to go outside to go look for something. Doesn't really make sense if I'm paying so much to be here and I'm being told to go externally to go find someone to actually take care of my issues.
Okay, thank you. Any more audience questions?
For Dorothy, obviously people, when it's 2020 and you see everywhere on social media that students are anxious, students are depressed, and for you, Kaladi, as well, what are both of your plans within the well-being of NUSU to actually help alleviate that stress, that anxiety that students are going through every day?
I think it's a well-known fact that student mental health is declining. So 1 in 4 students say that they do have a mental health problem, and I think as a student union it's just about extending that support, so making sure that people know that okay, we're here to signpost you out. I think it's just if we can just keep expanding the provisions that NUSU already provides, so we have a welfare officer, so being okay, do I talk to her and we start doing this and this, these like drop-ins to be like, okay, where do I go? What do I do? Or just publicising Kingsgate more, which is where you can go to get counselling or to be referred for counselling. So I think it's just about us like publicising that we are here to support students and that this is where this support is, and you can come to us and we'll show you where to go. Yeah.
Well, I swear Kaladi just mentioned that they only allow 6 sessions per year, and if you're told to go externally, I think that's NHS, and for you, Kaladi, as well. I'm under the impression that the NHS has a waiting list of 3 to 4 months. So what are people meant to do in those 3 to 4 months, and how are you as presidents going to help with that situation?
So I think obviously the 6th counselling session is there because of a lack of resources and a limit to the resources that the university can provide. So if we can find funding to be able to extend those resources, and that's obviously something that I would look into and kind of see if there is kind of like anywhere we can tap into money that could expand that. But I also do think it's important that like if people are genuinely struggling beyond the provisions available for the university, that they do go externally, because like sometimes they do just need the extra help, and whether it is that we find somewhere we can like liaise with and make those provisions available, then like that's something I would look into as SU president.
Claudia?
It's just making sure that we know that mental health is very important and key to terms that there's no point saying I'm a student, living a student life. If my mental health is not in balance, there's no point going to lectures if my mental health is not in balance. It's all about the university actually realizing that that's like the father of the most important things that we actually need to actually look at. On yes, we can say discrimination is out there, and we can say creativity is out there, but personally, I feel like mental health is way much more important, and they need to actually put more funding and more help, and they actually need to think about much more creative ways of making students involved in that.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go on to closing statements now. As Finn said, he can't be here, but he has sent in a closing statement. He said, I regret that I could not attend tonight, but I hope that my writing has given you a good impression of the approach that I'll take if I'm elected as president. My manifesto focuses on what I believe are simple and achievable aims for the student union that will improve life for the students we represent, but I'm certainly not afraid to consider the longer term, more continuously developing issues, such as transparency and finance distribution, that stem from Newcastle University as an institution. I will strive to achieve positive and practical change to benefit the experience of all students enrolled here. Dorothy, closing statement?
So I hope that by listening to me, you realise that I am very passionate about easing the lives of students in any little way that I possibly can. I really care about the issues that I've mentioned in my manifesto. I really care about sustainability, about transparency from the university, and about student well-being. And yeah, so if you like that, please consider voting for me.
Thank you, Claudia.
I just want to say I'm not going to make empty promises on things that I'm not going to do. Rather, I'll just state things that I know that are possible and that I can actually do in my capacity as if I was voted as president. I can come with you a lot of issues as a student, but obviously in reality, we all know that being a president is a full-time job, and you're in a position where you're meeting much more corporate people than even less students. So you always have to come correct with your points of views and make sure that they actually would fit the people that you're taking it to, and they would actually listen to what you're saying. So for me, I've looked at my aims and I've looked at my point of views and where I'm coming from, and I know they're achievable on that level, and I just hope you vote for me.
Thank you. That concludes our coverage this year in 2020 of all the student union election debates now, ending with the president debate. Thank you, Claudia, and thank you, Dorothy, for coming and attending. Thank you for everybody in the audience and everybody that sent in questions online. Thank you, Katie, for coming down and helping out. That sums it up. Thank you all.
Thank you. Well done.